The sun is shining. It is a beautiful day in Denmark. So what better time for this episode of Denmark 101 than to talk about taxes? Never a fun topic, and I am not a tax professional, so this is not tax advice. We just have to make that clear, right? But basically, let's talk about some of the things that people often get wrong about the Danish tax system, how it compares a little bit to the US, and some of the cool things about it. So, first and foremost, you always hear about Denmark, and you always hear about Denmark having this extremely high tax rate. There's a 25% value-added tax, VAT tax on everything, any point of sales purchase, and then we pay between, let's say, 40 and I think it comes to about 60% of our income to the tax man. Now, you get a lot for that, and a lot of the studies, and when you actually do the math, you compare it to the US, you compare it to other areas, actually you don't end up paying that much more. I've now been working for a year in Denmark, so I can compare my experiences in the US versus here, and I've got to say, honestly, I feel like I'm getting a lot more for my taxes, and that it makes the whole process much simpler. And again, remember that there's free dental care for Danish youths until they turn 18. Education is free. You are paid to go to school all the way up through your master's, and then PhDs, of course, pay very well. Free healthcare and medical care, and contrary to what some of the naysayers will say, it really is incredible comparatively. My experiences with my doctor, the experiences and things that I've seen in comparison to what I've run into in the US and what I've seen in the US they're night and day. If I get sick and I need an ambulance, it's not going to cost me $1,800, something like that, right? All of those benefits, they factor into it and what you're getting for your tax money on top of the various other benefits. But that's kind of a different discussion. What I want to talk about is the actual tax system itself. The one part that people get wrong the most often, and this is true in the US, it's true here in Denmark, is that they don't truly understand how a tiered tax system works. So a tiered tax system means that my first 48,000 kroner here in Denmark is tax-free. I think it's something like 11,000 in the US. So no matter how much money I make, that is always going to be tax-free. Then, after that, I bump into the next tax tier, and that puts me at, I think it's about 40% for that tax tier. That's a fairly large tax tier. That's where a large chunk of the Danish population resides. Now, in that 40% tax tier, the first 48,000 kroner doesn't get taxed at all. Then, within that bracket, that tax tier, I'm taxed at roughly that 40%. Then, if I make more money than that, incrementally, whatever that money is that's made over the top of that tier, when I move into the next tier, the only money that's taxed at that next tier up is money over that tier amount. So if that's, I can't remember the exact figures, but let's say I bump into the next tax tier at 480,000. But then let's say I'm making 500,000 kroner a year. That's 20,000 kroner that's going to be taxed at that higher tax rate. It does not mean that all 500,000 kroner would be taxed at that higher tax rate. And that causes a lot of confusion as far as fairness and components and stuff like that. But that's how it works. And in truth, it works the same in the US. It's just widely misunderstood. So you have the tax tiers. The tax rate is relatively high as a result, but again, you do get a lot of services. When it comes to paying and filing your taxes, it's incredible how much simpler it is. And I know there are some Danes that will roll their eyes and want to disagree with me, but comparing to the US system, with the 1040 Easy, which is supposed to be the easy form, it's incredible how much more difficult it still is. So here, you log into skat.dk, the government website. You enter a prediction for this upcoming year, what your salary is, what deductions you're expecting to have, all of which are right there on a web form. Very simple, very straightforward. Not too many, not that complicated. You enter it, then over the course of the year, taxes are automatically withheld and deducted from your salary. Then at the end of the year, you have the opportunity to go in and amend it. The government then issues a notice of what your tax burden is. So if that's going to be a refund or what you're going to owe in taxes, at which point then you can amend and see if you left out some sort of deduction for having a child, education, commuting, all of these different things that you get nice tax credits for, all of which you fill out in a straightforward way on the web page. And you can do the whole thing in less than 20 minutes if you don't have a super complicated tax situation. That amendment then is filed. If you owe money, then you pay it directly through the website, through a web form, straight out of your account, or you get the credit in a month or two. That's it. Your taxes are paid. It's squared away. It's all done. There's no Mickey Mouse. You're not paying. Like, that factors in and handles all of your local commune taxes, which is your local, that would be our county taxes back in the US, and everything else, plus a lot of those taxes are covered through the VAT. So it's simple, much simpler, much more straightforward, and much more intuitive. Now, for some of you, which may be Americans, unfortunately, the US and Denmark are double taxation countries. Now that means that if I start making more than $100,000, that I then need, or here in Denmark, that I need to declare that to the US, where then that first 100,000 or so is tax-free if I've been living abroad for a set amount of time. But beyond that, then I will have to start paying taxes back in the US. Now those taxes are heavily adjusted, and it's a small slice of what I would be paying otherwise, because they take into consideration that I'm already paying Danish taxes. But that is a consideration that does factor in for some internationals and for some expats. There are also some new forms that I have to file back in the US that cover declaration of my bank accounts here. And I think that's over more than $10,000 and things like that. So it's never fun, never simple, but I do have to say that as an American who has paid taxes in the US and is now paying taxes here in Denmark, this system works. Of course, it can always be streamlined a bit. And well, I'm not thrilled to be paying the tax that I'm paying, because no one wants to pay taxes. I am thrilled by what I get for it. And I think that's what you find with a majority of Danes, and why the Danes are actually, for the most part, they'll grumble a little bit about it. But for the most part, you'll find very few Danes that aren't actually very happy with what they get for their services, and aren't willing to kind of gladly pay that. Especially once they clarify or gain the clarity as far as how the tiered system works, and that you really are only paying that extra tax burden on income over a certain amount, which some will disagree with as well, but that is a whole different conversation. So hopefully that helped you better understand the Danish tax system. For more details, you can always hop online and then dive into it, but that general overview, well, hopefully fills in the blanks. As always, thank you for tuning in, thank you for sharing these videos, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for your comments and your feedback. The comments from Danes in particular has been fantastic. I'm very flattered, very touched by the positive words that you've shared, but also the insights and how you have helped me elaborate on many of the topics that I've covered in Denmark 101. So thank you, stay tuned, more episodes coming soon.